episode 123. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? How's it going, Dave? As soon as we start, just immediately my hair just completely mess up. But that doesn't matter.
That's when you actually look at the screen.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter for the people listening at home.
Michael's hair is messed up for the audio listeners.
Yes.
It's like all over his face.
Kinda right now, yeah. It's bothering the hell out of me. But how's it going, Dave? How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It's I know we do the boring like weather talk usually every week, but the weather's really nice, so it's been good to open up every single window in the apartment.
Yeah. And then for me, it's been like an anxiety-filled weekend because I started a new role today, the day that we're recording this. So a new store, new people, new everything, including a new 40-minute drive.
That's the best part.
Yeah. So, but we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that goes live every Thursday, 6 a.m. Eastern Time on podcast services. We live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming, where you're able to subscribe to us if you want. And please check your subscription if you've been subscribed to us before. That'd be super helpful. And as well as you can link your, like I said, your Amazon account to your Twitch account if you have that. You get a bunch of cool stuff. Like I just recently liked like Prime Gaming on Facebook, and I forgot about all the stuff that they give out like every month. Whether it's like, I think like Madden's on there through Origin right now. There's just a bunch of stuff on there, including like in-game stuff. There's stuff for Apex, there's stuff for Destiny, there's stuff for Brawlhalla, I think. There's always something in there. So you should definitely check that out. And also, just why it's on my mind, if you haven't like just made an Epic account, even if you don't have a good PC, just redeem the free games they give out when you might get a good PC, or they do some type of like
I did that for
service.
Years for a lot of this stuff. When I finally got the PC, spent like a weekend just downloading every single thing.
Yeah, so there's definitely some of that stuff you should check out. But other than that, a little lighter news week, lighter playing for me for sure, just because of getting prepared to change stores again. But we've got some news to talk about, so we're going to give it back over to Michael.
Yeah, all right. So the first bit of news kind of happened today. A lot of this was kind of happening last day or so, but CD Projekt Red have kind of formally re-announced that they're making another Witcher game. They've talked about in the past that they were going to work on a Witcher game because it's obvious, especially after how Cyberpunk went. You probably want to go back to what made you money and made your name. So they are going to be doing a new saga in the Witcher franchise. And the reason this is newsworthy is because they have decided to move away from their Red engine, which was used on the previous Witcher games and Cyberpunk 2077, and they are going to be using the Unreal Engine 5. So they're going to be working with Epic Games on this. It sounds like they signed a 15-year deal for Epic Games, specifically to use their engine. I don't know exactly the ins and outs of it. I'm assuming when you sign a 15-year deal with Epic to use their engine, it means that you'll get some sort of support from Epic Games along with, just access to this engine. This is kind of huge, in terms of big game everyone's going to be using Unreal Engine 5 very soon, but this is like a big studio that's saying their next big game will be Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, and this is where, like, contrary to popular belief, this is where like Epic gets, I think, almost a huge chunk of their profit is they essentially give out their engine code, in most cases, probably not to CD Projekt Red, but they give out their engine code for free or for like a subscription model, and then if your game somehow blows up, they get a percentage.
Well, yeah, they've been their Unreal Engine powers so many games, and a lot of studios have been bringing their own engines to it.
You can tinker, Michael, you can tinker with the Unreal Engine 5 at home now.
Yeah, they've opened it up.
Free. Yeah.
Like they're trying an asset store sort of thing as well.
Right, but then if for some reason you create something and it explodes, like the next, like, I don't know, like Flappy Bird or something, then you owe Epic royalties. Like, it's some agreement you have with them. And I'm sure that CD Projekt Red and Epic came to, like you just said, like a deal that involves a percentage of sales, obviously. And another Witcher game, great, I guess. Concerns as well about like the longevity of Cyberpunk now, like.
Yeah, I mean, we always knew that they were going to go back to Witcher. Like, they have said in the past that they are working on a Witcher game. But that the idea that they're changing engines is pretty huge, going from like, hey, we're working on a Witcher game to, also it's going to be on a completely different engine that we don't, we haven't previously used, even though the Unreal Engine is like the friendliest engine out there. But it's kind of a big deal when you get CD Projekt Red to do this. And probably shows that like a lot of the issues they ran into with Cyberpunk 2077 were probably engine based if they're just looking to start fresh on a different engine.
So do you think, all right, what's the okay, so we just talked kind of ad nausea last week about Star Wars from Quantic Dream. What do you think the over under on this Witcher game coming out is?
I would probably say it's going to be around that Star Wars
2027 window.
Because you have to imagine, like, they're still been doing support for Cyberpunk. Now they're going to have to work on the Unreal Engine. They're going to have to get people up and going. They're probably going to have to hire some newer people that are like used to this.
Like we've talked about before, there's probably a foundation for this game already made in their Red engine.
Yes, and now they're going to have to translate that.
They're going to have to port that over or start over.
Mm-hmm.
It is a friendly engine, but we do, like a friendly use engine. But we also know that it does take CD Projekt Red some time, and they tend to try to be, in my opinion, a little bit overly ambitious. Rightfully so. They're video game creators. They're creating art and cool stuff, and they want to, but I almost wonder, I hope that Cyberpunk has maybe humbled them a little bit, and they go, hey, you know what? Maybe we can't do 14 leaves on a tree, because then the car won't move.
No, I would imagine that this will allow them to be more ambitious, because then they don't have to worry about building an engine around their ambition, which is what they were doing previously, is they were working on an engine.
That's a good point.
And trying to be artistic. This allows them to, like, you know what? Tech side, Epic's got this. We'll build this out using their engine, run into an issues. They probably will have an answer to bail us out, and then they can be as ambitious as they want to be with it. This kind of excites me that we won't just get like, here's Witcher 4, like it's a new saga, but also it's just like, hey, we're gonna try some different things. We're gonna go to some different places or something.
Do you think that there's any possibility that this game comes out sooner and is a Miles Morales Lost Legacy like experience?
It depends. I doubt they would get in.
Like, could we get a 2024 release or 2025 release, but a 8-hour game?
I don't think.
Which I think would piss off Witcher fans terribly.
No, that wouldn't work for how CD Projekt Red likes to build games, and that wouldn't work with the fans. Mm-hmm. Like, they need to do a big, ambitious open world game. This at least allows them to not have to worry about the tech aspect of that. So we won't get like a smaller Witcher game. Though CD Projekt Red has a bunch of different projects going. I know we will get technically a smaller Witcher game because they did sign Molasses Studio. They acquired them to make stuff in the Witcher world.
Yeah, so like a 15-year deal though, like what does that make? A game and a half of them?
yeah, which is reasonable. Like for the ambitious games they
get the second game out like right at the end of the contract. Maybe.
Yeah, I assume we're getting the next Witcher game within the next 7 years. We'll see something from them. And then they haven't been afraid in the past to announce a game and then show it at multiple shows throughout time. Like for multiple years, they were showing Witcher 3 at E3, and Cyberpunk, I think I had saw like 2 or 3 times before it got delayed for a year and then the pandemic happened. So I was probably close to seeing Witcher or Cyberpunk for like 4 years in a row in E3 before the pandemic. So that is happening over there. Next bit of news. EA kind of just said they're just not doing an EA Play this summer. So EA announced that they will be skipping EA Play this year, and then they will just make individual game announcements when those announcements are ready. So they're not going to put themselves under the pressure of having to have a show. In other kind of E3 related news, Xbox is reportedly putting on a presentation for that usual E3 timeframe, regardless if the ESA puts together a E3 digital presentation experience, whatever they want to call it. So basically EA pulling out of doing something this summer, and then Xbox saying they will be doing something this summer.
Good.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with like I would assume probably the only thing that EA would show us would be Fallen Order 2.
Yeah.
And like I don't like Battlefield, whatever. If they're trying to do anything with Battlefield, like unless there's like some kind of remaster or something. So like I don't really expect that at all.
They definitely seem like a company that they didn't have to do a summer showcase, but they felt they needed to, because every year we would have expectations for them, and then it'd be like, oh, here's Madden, for 15 minutes, and here's FIFA for 15 minutes, and every year we would get upset or annoyed that they're spending time on that, and it's literally most of their business model.
Because like they've already come out and said like that Dead Space won't be ready, so like they've already kind of just moved stuff away from when they would do the summer thing. I don't think that anybody's ready for an EA play style event post pandemic, because that place is packed.
yeah. No one wants to like go to a physical thing, and even a digital showcase. They don't really have a ton of things that they can show. Like Dragon Age isn't ready.
Skate them?
Yeah, Skate is them, but they said like they are like nowhere near ready to like show that game. So
nothing's ready, and like nothing's showable. Nothing, it also like they could also just minimize it and do something in late June, late July of just like, hey, we're going to do a Fallen Order event, and they're gonna broadcast it on Twitch, and it'll be an hour thing or whatever. Like, and they can do that. Or maybe just make a Jedi Fallen Order style presentation event, but they don't need the EA Play to do that.
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of expecting him to do something at the Star Wars celebration, the May 4th event. So we'll probably get Star Wars there. It seems like Dead Space, they have their thing that they want to do, which is just every couple months or every month just do a presentation. So they're just... I prefer them doing this because, again, every time they would do a show, it just kind of felt forced that they had to fill time. They felt obligated to give everyone like a 60-minute showcase, and they only had 15 minutes to show, or 15 minutes worth of content to show. So them pulling back is pretty good. And I'm sure at this point, PlayStation, or more specifically in Xbox, is probably now talking to them, being like, you want to showcase something in our presentation. Most likely it would be Xbox that would want that, because I don't think PlayStation approaches anyone for State of Plays because they don't have to, but Xbox has to approach companies to be like, hey, we want you in our showcase. So now I would expect, the next Dragon Age reveal to now be at the Game Awards, or maybe they put it in their the Xbox presentation, though Xbox has so many similar studios that I don't know if a Dragon Age game is going to stick out if they're showing Avowed and Starfield and anything.
I mean, we've seen it similar to like Xbox did a bunch of Assassin's Creed Valhalla reveals.
Yeah. But luckily for Valhalla, there was nothing else similar at that showcase to Valhalla.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And right now with Xbox,
I would expect whatever Xbox is, it'll be a heavy Starfield event, because they really haven't shown anything. So like whatever they're doing in June will be very heavily Starfield, and then hopefully some of the games that we've been talking about for like another update on Hellblade 2. And Outer Worlds
2. Yeah, I it's so weird because that Obsidian, they've spread so thin that I have no idea when we'll see stuff. And then I was reading a report that like Hellblade isn't looking like it will come out until next year. So I don't know. I have a feeling for Xbox specifically, I don't think Starfield will show up at an Xbox presentation. I think they just do a Bethesda presentation that's only Starfield related, just because they want to make it feel as special as possible.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It's already been shown and dated. So.
Yeah, so I would expect Starfield to just get its own presentation or event some random time this summer, and just keep it separate from everything else. Like have Pete Hines out there instead of Phil Spencer doing a presentation. So we'll see how that shakes out. I guess the summer game mess stuff that always trends will continue this year, and then Jeff Keighley will do his thing. So we'll keep an eye on this stuff, because we'll start to see plans formulate over the next... See, usually around E3, right around now is when we would start getting like emails about like, are you going to be at E3? And we'd be getting our like calendar stuff.
Trying to register.
Yeah.
Or we've already would have been registered like last month.
Yeah, but we would have started getting the emails. But since there's no E3, I expect not in the too distant future, we'll start seeing stuff about companies setting up some sort of presentation for the summer, because it's still a good time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But let's move on to our favorite thing, and that's video game company acquisitions.
I didn't see this at all. I did not see this.
Yeah, so PlayStation has acquired Haven Studios. So Jade Raymond's new studio has been acquired by PlayStation. They were currently working on a new IP for PlayStation that was a live service game that they were trying to pitch as like a potential social platform. They talked a lot about like remixing content. Don't know what exactly it is other than a live service game that was going to be exclusive to PlayStation. Looks like PlayStation really liked what they were seeing and decided it'd just be easier to just acquire them.
Or Haven asked for more money to make the game.
Yeah, it was either, I would imagine PlayStation really liked what they saw, and Haven was like, we're going to need more bodies or something, and PlayStation probably only saw the way to do that is by just bringing them in the fold and then letting the hive mind, get access to it. This is now that they're part of PlayStation, they would probably feel comfortable sending people from Bungie over to go poke at it, as opposed to if they were an independent studio, you probably don't want to send like people from Bungie over there and like spill secrets to people that aren't under the same company. Studio's currently up to 60 employees. There's no current release date for the game. The reason I mentioned 60 employees is why I think they were acquired, because it's just 60 people. Like if they're going to try a live service game, you probably want to beef up that staff number, and the best way again to do it is to just bring them on into the hive mind, have everybody at all these studios give it a poke, mess around with it. But Dave, does this make you a little more confident in like what they're doing, or just not? No. Just nothing. Yeah.
No, I mean, well, I guess the thing that we care about the most is like, did we get a dollar figure?
Nope.
That I would assume the dollar figure would, and no offense to Haven, the dollar figure would be extremely lower than everything else we've been talking about, because they haven't made a game.
And the IP they were working on was already owned by PlayStation.
Right.
Yeah.
So, again, this is just like, I don't really have a tangible equation to this. Like, Bryce Harper bought a sports team, and all of a sudden these people want to play with him, like because he's the owner. Or Michael Jordan's buying a different basketball team. Does it automatically make the Bulls better, even though the Bulls are already good right now? Like this person, like Jade Raymond, I don't know a ton about her. I know she did some stuff with Stadia. That didn't go too well.
So was one of the creative people behind Assassin's Creed as a franchise, so was there to establish Assassin's Creed, and then worked on it, I think, through Brotherhood, and then moved on, and then basically just kind of called her own shot of going from company to company. But after that, we didn't really see anything happen, but every company wanted to work with her.
Yeah, I feel like she's like the writing version of Amy Hennig. Like Amy Hennig hasn't really done anything since like Uncharted 3, and you like every once in a while you'd see her name being thrown around, like, oh, it's a big deal that she went here and she's doing a Star Wars game. Yeah, that got canceled. Oh, she's doing this. Yeah, that got canceled. So it's like, oh, now Amy Hennig's doing this. Like, okay, well, it's been like 10 years. Like, what,
Yeah, I can definitely see that. There's obviously something there that people want to work with Jade Raymond. It's just a matter of she just kind of just didn't make the best picks, like went to EA from Ubisoft, and that didn't work out. And then went from EA to Google, because Google was probably like, hey, we're trying to do something ambitious, but then it's Google and they give up on things very quickly. So
she's technically 1 for 3, and she's going to going for number 4 right
Which
now.
Which almost makes me think that, like, because of what you're saying, you're not the only one that says stuff like that. So it's one of those things where I would imagine there's an extra motivation to just get this to be a thing.
And I don't want people to release bad games. I don't want games to be canceled. But it's just kind of one of these things where like it's like a big free agent name, and like, okay, well, maybe you're past your prime. I'm not saying she is. I'm not saying she isn't. But it's like, are you getting paid for what you did or what you're going to do?
And I imagine whatever Haven is working on had impressed PlayStation enough, regardless of if they think, Jade Raymond can bring it over the finish line. they see something in here that they're just like, you know what? Let's just all bring it in the house. So if something happens, it's still on us. And then again, it could be passed over to another team, or it can be worked on by several teams, which is like the PlayStation way of doing things. But this is PlayStation's 18th studio, so they're still building up that stable of developers. But yeah, I'm still interested to see what this is going, because I don't like if this turns out to just be like a first-person shooter. Like, I know PlayStation needs one, but like the way they're talking about how they're looking at like Nike ID, TikToks, just how they're looking at how things get remixed, it sounds like could be something ambitious, or it could just be Little Big Planet, and I
Little Big Dreams.
I need to see what this is going to be. Because PlayStation definitely needs their live service game, and they can't just rely on Bungie for everything for that, you know, in terms of like eventually the Destiny train will stop and
or stagnant at least.
So they need to like figure out what to do, and you know, Bungie has their next thing that they're already working on, but they promised 10 live service games by 2026, and they need to kind of stick to that as much as they can. Yeah. But that was it for the news, though there was a Hogwarts Legacy State of Play. I don't know if I know you're not really a Harry Potter person.
I'm not, but I did watch this two reasons. One, because I was just kind of wanted to see gameplay of this game, and it looks amazing.
Yes.
And enough to maybe it might interest me. I feel like it's changed directions. I thought that they initially were talking about this kind of being like a cooperative game, and it looks more single player now, but I could be wrong about the cooperative part. I just thought there was going to be different wizards, if that's what they are.
Yeah, I don't know
classes.
Well, there's definitely different like classes in like as much as you can in terms of like if you're going to be like a botanist or like spell focused.
And then the second reason is Chandler.
Yeah, he's the community manager over there.
Yeah. So that poor guy's Twitter account. Oh.
Yeah, man.
I started looking at that one day. I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. I had a little chat with him after he announced this, and it was like, man, good luck with that fan base, man. It's gonna be be a roller coaster.
And I feel bad for him from both directions, because like, okay, one, you're on a highly ambitious game that looks really cool. Like just removing the Harry Potter from it, like
it looks fantastic.
A wizard game looks amazing. Like it looks amazing. And then it's in the Harry Potter world where like we're already seeing people like freaking out with a Halo television show that's going to have like a Ford in it. Versus like they're talking about, oh, you're gonna be able to explore areas that you've only seen like as a background in the movie. You're gonna be able to walk around like. Again, I'm not a Harry Potter fan. Please don't kill me for saying this, but you're going to be able to walk around like the wizard table.
Well, no, so like, yeah, but there's a lot of stuff to where it's like, you know, you're going to be walking around Hogwarts. I didn't know it was going to be open to where like the parts around Hogwarts was going to be open.
Yeah.
And then they said like Hogsmeade, which is like the village that's outside of Hogwarts, that's going to be somewhere you can visit. And I was like, oh, this is a way bigger thing than I was expecting it to be. But continue your point.
This might make me... I have not watched 10 minutes of a single movie. So this might make me like check the movies out and to see if there's enough interest in the characters in the world to spark me to want to play. I already want to play the game just because of how it looks, but then I just don't think I would care. And like I see myself losing interest to where now maybe I watch some of the movies and get a little bit of a foundation of what's going on, and then decide if it's going to make me care about the game more.
Well, the thing the smart thing they're doing is they realize that like going to the books and the movies is going to be a lot for some people. So this is like hundreds of years, or like 200 years before the movies or the books take place. So they did a really smart thing about this. Like, you know what? Let's just go far back into the legacy of Hogwarts and just go from there, which is interesting because like I've read the books, watched the movies, like just 2 years ago. So I was interested in like exploring Hogwarts, but I'm actually more interested because it's like Hogwarts in the 1800s. It's just like, oh, so this is a completely different time period. It kind of feels like how, you know, they're handling like the Star Wars franchise, to where you're exploring different parts of the Star Wars universe, and you also don't need to get permission from Lucas anymore to do that stuff. And this, I would imagine, is somewhat similar, where they're not really working with J.K. Rowling outside of like basic approvals. But that's where
that's the other part that I feel kind of bad about. They're just the studio is getting railed because their game is Harry Potter.
Yeah,
That sucks.
Yeah, like they must have been so excited, and then every day they have to worry that J.K. Rowling is on Twitter stirring shit. Like that is something that they're just always going to have to deal with. And
like, does she have any input into this story?
I mean, her name's on it, but I would assume it's just like because she's still in charge of it.
Because she owns Harry Potter.
Yeah. So, but I'm imagining it's very much like Lucas, to where they just like, here's some bullet points, and then she just checks off like that's fine, and that's it.
Yeah.
But
like she's not coming to the studio or reading the script saying, no, you can't use that word.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's that deep. And especially if you look at it, they're saying Wizarding World, Hogwarts Legacy. 5 years ago, that would have said J.K. Rowling's Hogwarts Legacy, but they're just going with the brand over her name. But it's definitely one of those things where it must suck because, like, she is constantly...
They're making something super cool and super ambitious, and
every time
the creator is just stomping on them.
Yeah, it's super
frustrating. People are not going to buy this game because they don't like J.K. Rowling, and that sucks for this studio.
Mm-hmm. Especially when it looks impressive. Especially there have been Harry Potter games in the past and they've never been good.
Mm-hmm. Well, any licensed game is always risky.
Yeah, and this one looks like it's.
But this one looks fantastic. It looks fantastic.
This looks like Bully meets Harry Potter, and like that. Yeah. Sounds amazing because like you're gonna have to go to the classes to like level up your character. You're gonna be able to explore. There's a ton of things like that they're doing like that are callbacks, or not even callbacks. Well, technically callbacks to the books and movies, but they're really just like setting the foundation for that.
Piece. Yeah.
So there's a ton of stuff in here, but it looks amazing. But man, every time I see this trending, I see J.K. Rowling trending alongside with it, and it's always like, what did she do now? What horrible thing did she say?
Do you think we're getting it this year?
I think we are. I think Warner Brothers. I think this is going to be the thing that kills Gotham Knights, is because they're going to release these around the same time.
Yeah.
And I would imagine. Yeah, I think.
Or do you think this is like June, July? Like any chance this is June, July?
No, I think this is like a perfect like holiday game. I think because there was reports that this was already supposed to be out. Like I think they were aiming for a 2021 release originally, and then a pandemic hit. So I assume this will be a holiday game, and it might be enough to distract people from the J.K. Rowling factor. Release it during the holidays. People will be on the shelves. They'll
go in the store and see the Harry Potter logo on a game box.
Yeah, as opposed to if it released in June, people are going to just focus in on whatever J.K. Rowling's doing, but do it around Christmas, and you can probably get people that aren't going to be as aware.
There's like a Harry Potter style movie coming out soon.
Yeah,
right?
Fantastic Beasts, I think, is on its third movie, which is already its own thing where it's like...
Yeah, but this is like the older version, right?
Yeah, so Fantastic Beasts, I think, is like 1950s, and then Harry Potter's is like the 1990, and then this is 1800s.
Do you think that I would enjoy Harry Potter movies?
Yeah, they're okay.
Because I'm not going to read the books, that's for sure.
The books are significantly better, but you could say that about any like movie adaptation.
I do have a 40-minute drive to work now, so maybe I can start listening to audiobooks.
Yeah, there are a set of movies that definitely like they did a good job of aging with the audience in terms of like, hey, most of the people that saw the first one were probably 7, so the movie is very much like here's a joke.
And now 12, and now 16, and now 20.
Yeah, and it gets like moody enough by the time it gets to the 8th movie. But there's also 8 movies, so you have to be like, what do you really want to do? Like, read the books or watch all the movies?
I'll probably watch all the movies.
Yeah, so this looks fantastic. Like, I'm super excited for this. I do not envy the developers and community manager that has to deal with like
they're making something so cool, and they're just getting shit on by the community that doesn't like a person. Like, it just sucks.
Yeah. But you have to kind of feel for that fan base too, is because like this is something that they like use. This is something that like informed their lives growing up. This is something that means something so much
Yeah,
to them.
no,
And then
like,
the author is just
yes,
like,
yeah.
I'm
somebody in your early 30s, late 20s, early 30s that loved Harry Potter, loved the books, loved the movies. Like, oh, like they're releasing a video game. This is so cool. Like whether they can introduce it to their kid, like maybe their kid's young enough that they're just starting to do this, like, and then finding out that something that kind of like molded their adolescence is like written by like just a terrible person.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
And a person that's frustrating of just like, you have billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars, to shut the fuck up. Like,
go in your house, shut your door, close your blinds, sit down.
Like, I really think I'm sure Disney already is like putting together like, okay, how much money can we throw at her to buy this? And I'm sure Warner Brothers, when AT&T bought them, were like, how much money can we throw at her to just take this away from her? And
give her like a muzzle.
and I think it's one of those things where she doesn't want to get rid of it because she likes the platform to do her talking. So it's crazy. I assumed eventually some corporation's going to buy it from her, but
muzzle her.
Yeah, but it won't be anytime soon.
Yeah. All right. So that's pretty much it for the news. We did get a couple delays, sadly. Advance Wars 1 and 2 being delayed due to the war in Ukraine. This was coming to the Switch.
Yeah,
correct?
It's a Nintendo exclusive. Nintendo's the one who's delaying it. They just are like, we don't want to put out a game right now where you invade other countries in the middle of an invasion.
And then Stalker 2 has been delayed until the war in Ukraine is over.
Because they're a Ukraine-based studio. And
originally set for December's release.
Yeah. So real world stuff, the whole thing is like, we'll probably get more game delays because there are studios in Ukraine and Russia. But the Advance Wars one was definitely one of those ones where it's just like, it totally makes sense why Nintendo would not want to put this game out right now.
Politically correct statement. Like, let's just not put a game out that has the word war in it.
Yeah, especially the premise of this one where it's just...
Yeah, this is similar, and I'm not comparing the two because they're both terrible things that are going on. Similar to like the 9/11 stuff at one point in time where we saw some games getting canceled because of...
I think Advance War was one of those games that was delayed during that time period.
Terroristic like activities.
Yeah. Especially Advance War has a very like kid-friendly art aesthetic, so it's definitely one of those weird things to put out. But I think Advance War during that time period was also the original games were delayed for that. So
I mean, this sucks, but it's probably the right move in general. Like especially for like Stalker 2, like those people have way more important things to worry about than developing a game right now.
Yeah, like they had to come out and be like, we're just trying to make a game, but we can't. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm assuming Advance Wars 1 and 2 will get released probably this summer. It won't be delayed forever, but who knows what's going to happen with Stalker 2 at this point.
Right. So what we're playing and watching, you want to go first?
So I'm still playing Elden Ring. Sorry that has been like the only thing I've been playing for a while, but it is damn entertaining, and Sarah's gotten into it, and she's actually significantly better at the game than me, so I've been watching her play it as well. But just going at bosses, finally have hit a level enough where I'm pretty confident to go to a bunch of different ruins and take down bosses. But the newest game that I've been playing is I picked up WWE 2K22. Got that from GameFly because there was no way I was going to put money down on that game after the last one. And I will say this is significantly better than the last one, but the last one was so bad that's not saying a lot. So this is a way more sound product. It's not as buggy as the last one. Like they've did some smart things in terms of simplifying the gameplay mechanics. Like it's actually easier to play. It's not like overly complicated like the previous games have gotten. But a way they like cut down on the bugs is they kind of just cut to like canned animations, almost like mini like cutscenes, because the camera will just like switch over to show you the move you're doing, and it just seems to like go into like a canned animation. So it seems like they're taking more control away from you, which is allowing them to prevent bugs from happening, so less chaos is possible because of those camera shifts, which I have mixed feelings on. Like, I like that it's less buggy, but it also feels weird that it kind of feels like, okay, you're not controlling anymore because we're going to go through this animation, but it does also give it like a cinematic look or makes it more similar to how you would see it on TV in terms of like the camera spinning and zooming in on specific moves.
Nice.
So like, I like that aspect, and it is easier to play. But this game definitely feels like the first game on this feels like a launch game for a new console. Because a lot of the modes feel kind of weak in terms of how deep they are. They're like, there's little depth. They brought back the My GM mode, which basically lets you take control of a Raw or SmackDown or NXT. And from there, you know, you book the show, like you book matches, you make your champion, and then you like can even have wrestlers cut promos. Basically, you're just trying to fill a show. But it's very limited in terms of you're only allowed to book like 3 matches per show and 2 promos. You cannot deviate from that. You know, you have your max 3 matches per show. The rosters, you go through a draft, but you're limited by like an arbitrary amount of money to draft talent. And it just kind of leads you to having like a roster of like 10 people. And then you have to put on 3 matches a week. So you're just going to, over the course of like 15 to 24 weeks, you're going to have a lot of the same matches over and over again. And you can't change the match types too much. Like you get like 3 or 4 different match types. So you often just kind of, after a couple weeks in that mode, you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to run the same match again because my roster is kind of limited with how many people I have. So a little disappointed with the My GM stuff. It's good that it's here, but it definitely feels like every time like EA brings like a Madden or FIFA over to a new console, that version always seems to have less features because they're like, oh, we're on a new engine and we're trying new features. This definitely feels like that.
It seems like they say that a lot.
Yeah. And this just feels weird because it's like, hey, we're entering year 3 of these consoles. This technically isn't the first game on these new consoles. So it just feels weird that it's just kind of stunted in terms of the feature set. But it does have like a really good story mode in terms of the history mode, where it's following the career of Rey Mysterio. So you get a lot of Rey Mysterio in WCW with like Eddie Guerrero. That stuff is really well done. And then they have the My Career mode where you make your own wrestler and you get put through some really bad like cutscenes with voice acting, but you at least get to see like your character go from like the Performance Center to NXT to the main roster. That stuff is still kind of satisfying. So like, overall, it feels like a better game than the last one, but I don't think this is a good game or a great game, regardless of how much better it is than the last one. This definitely still feels like they're stuck in the mud. It's just a little less buggy. But yeah, that's basically been eating up all of my game time is Elden Ring and 2K22, WWE 2K22.
Yeah, so I mean, I had a really like long run. Are you done?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I didn't really watch anything.
Yeah. I had a 5-day run of work coming back from North Carolina, and then like I said, this week I changed stores. So I didn't really play a ton of stuff. I did play some, like Owen's been on this kick again about playing some Knack 2, so I played some Knack 2 with Owen, co-op. I swear he's beaten this game like 6 or 7 times. And then I have been playing Yoshi's Craft World with him, and then that Kirby game comes out this week, so he's been starting to see more ads for that. Yeah, so that'll probably get picked up soon. So watched a good chunk of like NCAA, like the basketball tournament. Has been fairly interesting. More just like Sunday was like an anxiety filled day for me, just because I was getting ready to go to the new store, so I was kind of just like putting basketball on and putzing on my phone, and it was just me and Owen, so it was kind of just one of those days of just like meh. So I didn't realize, I think I said this, but like, and I still like, I didn't realize that Tunic was out. You know, so I need to download that and play that, and maybe even possibly stream that just to kind of get back into that rhythm. But I'm also worried that Tunic might aggravate me.
It's difficult. It's trying to be an old Zelda game, and it sounds like it succeeded in that.
If it's trying to be an old Zelda game, it won't frustrate me as much. If it's trying to be like a Dark Souls Zelda-like game, it'll probably piss me off. So, I didn't really get a chance to watch a lot of stuff. Just kind of, I closed Friday, closed Saturday. Sunday was like an anxiety-filled day, and today's Monday. We're recording a day earlier than normal, so that gives me a little bit more time next week to not play anything. But, just kind of checking out the tournament, the NCAA tournament, and just messing around with that. So that's really all I have. Sorry.
That's fine. It makes sense. You're busy with the new thing. It's going to be a little bit for you to settle in to the new thing. But yeah, I forgot that Kirby was coming out this week.
It's like the 25th.
Yeah,
so it's like in 3 days or 4 days.
I actually want to play that. I could probably pick that up.
Owen keeps asking me about it, like, oh, you could become a car, and I'm like, all right, bud, I got it. So I mean, I did clear the raid in Destiny 2. I think I did that earlier in the week, or at the right after we recorded last week. So I did complete that raid within like, I don't even know, like a 10-day window or something. So starting to get a little stagnant again, so we'll have to see if they can do anything to spark that. It's typical with like the seasonal content. It's always a challenge for them, I feel like, to release a big major expansion and a season at the same time. I almost wish they would just be like, hey, we're just going to do like the named expansion for like 2 months, and then we're going to start the seasons. Mm-hmm. And then the seasons just build off the 3 months after that, because both of these are trying to run parallel, and it just seems like they can never really nail that. So it's not like it's bad, but it's like, I'm curious, did one take away from the other?
Yeah, you'd think they'd just treat the expansions as off season. Just take like,
even if you just like delay like even a month, and start, okay, here's Witch Queen on February 18th or whatever, and then April 1st starts Season of the Risen, and then they release, I don't know if you cut a season short or you let the season play out and then you release the game, like the expansion, like, I don't know. I mean, they did just come off that 6-month season anyway, so it's fine. The crafting system is interesting. They're having, because I follow a ton of Destiny content creators on social media, they're having huge copyright strike problems that I think got resolved today.
Yeah,
even Bungie got hit directly. And rumor is that this is like Sony's company, that like as part of the acquisition, Sony's like, oh, we've got that taken care of. And I don't think they understand Bungie's rules, even for Bungie. So hopefully it sounds like some of that might have been taken care of. But I didn't realize, like, if you get copywritten striked like 3 times by YouTube or by like they like take your channel.
Yeah, no, yeah, it like Twitch is just as bad too. Like, I'm always like just looking at our Twitch one, being like, I don't think we streamed anything that would get copyright, but
yeah, but I mean, like, there's like some of these people, like, not for us, obviously, like, it's not a, like if they copyright struck us and took our channel, like, we could just make Digital Days Gaming too. Like, our following isn't terrible, but some of these people, like, it's like their livelihood. Like, if you take the channel, like, that's their job.
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
Something that they've been doing for years the same way, and all of a sudden it's not acceptable. And the only common denominator is Sony's purchase of Bungie.
No, and those are the type of growing pains that, Bungie's going to have to deal with, because they're going to have to, like...
Well, they came out and said, we have a meeting on Monday to specifically discuss this. And then another content creator came out and said, hey, the 2 strikes I had against me are now gone. So it's kind of crazy. So but yeah, we're gonna move on. Questions and comments, you can send us questions and comments using hashtag AskDigitalDays. You can send them on Twitter, on Facebook, comment on the Facebook group, any of that stuff. Robert Cartwright, which game has given you the most satisfaction upon completing, and why? I'm playing Elden Ring, and this will be my choice once I complete it. Go ahead.
For me, it's definitely been Elden Ring in terms of the last couple years, because this is definitely one of the most difficult games that I've like played. But more recent as well, Inscription was definitely one of those games that it gets kind of difficult, and the story stuff pushed me through, but there was a couple matches in Inscription, or like whatever you'd want to call them, that were difficult, and I had to bang my head against several times until I finally made progress. So definitely it seems like games that are difficult, like like an Elden Ring, a little bit of Inscription because you do have to bang your head against that game. Definitely have had some satisfying moments, especially. I'm starting to understand why people like Souls games, because it's just. I talked about it last week. I don't think the Souls games are necessarily that difficult. It's just a matter of just learning how the game wants you to play it, and it wants you to play different than other games do. So finally figuring out different aspects of Elden Ring have been very satisfying in terms of like, oh, this boss is going to destroy me, and then it does like 2 or 3 times, and then you finally figure it out. It's like when you get stuck in a puzzle in a game that you can't figure out, and then you come back to it the next day, and you're just like, oh, I'm stupid. I just solved it immediately. So definitely for me, like Elden Ring is up there now.
I don't really play any games that I think would be satisfying to complete. Partially because like I look at something like that, I'm like, I don't want to stress out when I play a game. Like that's kind of something like I try to avoid. So I can't really think of anything.
There's got to be an armor set that was satisfying to complete, or a gun to get in Destiny.
That's random drops though. That's not like a grind.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily needs to be a grind, but I'm sure at a certain point you've looked at your Destiny character and you're like, hell yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there's like I most of that I know what I'm getting into when I do that. Like, yeah, I get frustrated at certain things. Like, I guess if I would be able to complete. Currently, the most satisfaction thing is I completed an encounter on the contest modifier for Destiny, like one of 5 encounters or one of 4 encounters. Like before, I hadn't really been able to complete very many encounters on the contest modifier. So like that's somewhat satisfying, but just enjoying the games. Like it was relief to me to complete Horizon, and then also to like Nobody Saves the World. Like those games have a little bit of a rhythm and a learning curve to them, but those are the 2 most recent things that I've beaten, and last year I did not do a good job of completing games, so my most recent stuff is not very good. But like I'm purposely, like, as much as like you were speaking positively of it, and a whole bunch of other people I know are speaking positively of it, but I'm staying away from Elden Ring, even though it's kind of like intriguing to me, because I don't really want to get that frustrated with it. Yeah,
especially like, no offense for you, Elden Ring would not work for your schedule in terms of like, you need to be in a rhythm for this, but sometimes you can take like 2 days away from a game.
Right. It's the same reason I stepped away from Returnal.
Yeah.
Like, like just, Returnal, you kind of got to be in the rhythm too. And it was nothing wrong with it, but it just doesn't fit like with what I do. Like, and I can, like when everybody that's listening to the show knows, like when I get focused on a game that I enjoy playing, I power through it. But I also still dabble back to Destiny and stuff. And I think that if I went back and forth between Destiny and Elden Ring, I would just be punishing myself in Elden Ring.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's not much so that I can like sit there and say like satisfaction wise, but that's part of like the goal for this year is to kind of broaden that horizon. Like maybe Tunic will be it. I don't know. And then Stefan Wren rates our final question for tonight. Who is your favorite sports personality and why?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
But for me, it's just, I like the old dudes that just don't give a shit anymore. Like you get like a Charles Barkley, who knows, like he could care less if they fire him, so he'll just say whatever the hell he wants. Sometimes it's offensive, but most of the time it's entertaining. Baseball wise, Ozzie Guillen has kind of hit that point where he will say the most brutal things about the White Sox.
Is he managing still?
No, he's a commentator, or he's like a post-game person for the White Sox. But he'll be brutally honest about how things are going for the White Sox, and he doesn't have to care because he works for NBC, not the White Sox. So I really like the veterans that just don't give a shit anymore. Because I don't know, I hate like the Rob Gronkowski dudes. They just seem like annoying, like dude bros. Like current players in the current time seem annoying as hell to me. I like after they get like away from the game a little bit.
Yeah, I like some of like these young quarterbacks that the NFL has right now. Some of these 22, 23, 24-year-old quarterbacks. Like, well, I think they're like, I love how they're a little bit more open personality and they're not like robotic like Peyton Manning and Eli Manning and Tom Brady are or were. They just like, oh, well, both teams played hard. But then I also like, and this might just have to do with like for basketball, like with the Pistons, were like the going to work Pistons with like Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace and Chauncey Billups. Like I like the enforcer type bully.
Yeah, no,
players,
those are great.
Like,
yeah,
whether it's like hockey or even in basketball, like of where like, okay, like your job is to just hit this guy 5 times until you fall out of the game.
Yeah. No, like when like Charles Oakley was still playing.
Like Rodman, like removing Rodman from like Rodman's personality as like a persona, but like Rodman as a player.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like his brutal defense and like it just what he was doing in terms of like that type of enforcer stuff, or even like when I was paying much more closer attention to hockey than I am now. Like the Red Wings had like a grind line of people that would just like, if the other team was throwing their weight around, they just put these 5 guys on the ice and like they just pounded people. Like that was only their job, like the Bash Brothers and Mighty Ducks or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that was just their job. So like I miss the enforcers.
Yeah, like I miss the enforcers. Current players that I like, the only ones that I tend to gravitate to are like the hustlers or the grindy kind of players, the players that like aren't necessarily the best, but they're going to give you the most effort out of there. Like the Bulls have Caruso right now. If you go back into Bulls history, you have like Andres Nocioni. Joakim Noah was one of those dudes.
The sixth man off the bench is always like kind of like your favorite player because he always kind of like. Yeah, they always like spark the game. Like, oh, it's gonna be better because Jimmy's in the game.
Yeah. But give me the crusty veteran, like that just doesn't care anymore. Like those are the best. They're out of touch, but man, are they brutal sometimes, and it's great.
Yeah. I also like. I know you don't watch as much football as I do, but I really like the offensive lineman analysis, like the guys that are retired offensive linemen. And they kind of like talk about more of like what really goes on within football, because they're not the quarterback, they're not the wide receiver, they're not the running back. They're like, I weighed 325 pounds for 5 years and I just pushed men around.
Yeah.
Like,
the security guards of the NFL. Yeah. Though I could only name Olin Kreutz as an offensive lineman. I couldn't name anyone else.
There's a lot of them just in like offensive linemen and defensive linemen. Like whether you watch ESPN or NFL Network, there's a lot of them that are there now, and they're super entertaining. So, all right, that's our show for this week. So you can follow us on the social channels. Twitter is @DigitalDaysPod for the main account. Michael is @TheFirstMJC. Mine is @GoodDaveHunt. We've got a Facebook group, a Discord server, Patreon, Teesprings account. All those things are linked in the show notes. So go ahead and join the groups, join the Discord, hang out, start conversations. You don't necessarily have to wait for Michael or myself to start them. So if you see a trailer, you want to talk about it, post it. That's fine. If you see something cool happening, just in general, feel free to post it anywhere. Like obviously our patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming. $1 is the tip jar. $3 gets you Discord access to a different channel. $5 gets you the podcast 24 hours early, and $7 gets you the monthly podcast. The most recent one is the Uncharted movie review that my wife Angela and myself recorded, and we haven't figured out March's yet, so send us the stuff in because March is almost over.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Michael will be texting me someday randomly tomorrow at like 10 o'clock at night, like, hey, when are we doing this?
Most likely. I'll be like, I have 3 ideas. They're all bad.
Yeah. So we would love one of your ideas. Because it just means that either your idea gets used or your idea sparks something that we use. That's literally how it works. So even if you're not a Patreon supporter and you have a suggestion, like suggest it, and maybe if we do it, like you'll become a supporter because you want to hear it. I don't know. So other than that, I hope everyone has a great week and keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.